Welcome to Fraud Friday. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking loan fraud. Bankers, public officials, and borrowers who got caught. 3 stories today. I want to start with Senate Small Business Committee Chair Joni Ernst. She has introduced legislation to extend the window that borrowers can be indicted, or anybody can be indicted for COVID pandemic-related loan fraud through 2030. This is interesting because it's outside the normal realm of the statute of limitations, but she and the Republicans on the Senate Small Business Committee have had a real issue on believing that SBA has not been aggressive enough in going after fraud, especially for loans less than $150,000. We'll see how that plays out. I know that was a question in Kelly Loeffler's confirmation hearing, and Senator Loeffler said that no, she wants to be going after those. And I cannot tell you what the rationale was in terms of cutting that off, but SBA has been, and the Inspector Generals have been more willing to go after those small loans. And specifically, there's one, Kip James of Cincinnati. He got about a $21,000 loan. And he applied and got the loan while he was at a halfway house in Cincinnati. He had been released from prison following a 92-month prison sentence for illegally possessing a firearm as a previously convicted felon. He took the money, spent the money at restaurants, shopping, at clothing, shoe and liquor stores, and on a trip to Las Vegas. He then said that he spent that on payroll. His company was a taxi cab service. He did this as a sole proprietorship. This was in the second draw when they did open it up to sole proprietors, and he claimed that he had $99,000 in gross income. For that crime, he was sentenced to 13 months in jail. The next case I want to talk about is a gentleman by the name of Christopher Carroll. He's ending up getting 120 months, pretty hefty sentence for, quote, white-collar crime on a $3 million PPP loan. And I will read you what the judge said about him in his sentencing hearing. This occurred on February 4th, so just last week. Quote, defendant Carroll is a dangerous, violent person who stands convicted of multiple federal crimes, including a nearly $3 million CARES Act fraud from which he personally profited, conspiracy violations of the Clean Air Act, and witness tampering. Defendant Carroll used fraudulently obtained taxpayer funds to personally profit to fund his pet project, Whiskey Dick's Big Truck Repair, a business he used to violate the Clean Air Act. When his employees agreed to provide information about his crimes to the government, he told them to take the fall for him. Again, this is the judge. In view of defendant Carroll's clear incorrigibility, his lack of respect for the rule of law, and his violent criminal history, including his integral role in a murder for hire for which he was never held accountable, the U.S. requests the court oppose 120 months imprisonment. I stand corrected. This is the prosecutor's sentencing memo, which the judge didn't adopt. Specifically, between 1989 and 2021, defendant Carroll appears to have gone no longer than 18 months without committing a new crime while not incarcerated. And even while incarcerated, he incurred multiple infractions. So he got a PPP loan for this adventure. And what he did is he took these, quote, again from the sentencing memorandum, used his ill-gotten gains to fund his trucking company. He then yet again flouted the law and orchestrated the systematic removal of emission controls from his fleet of diesel trucks, most of which were purchased with fraudulently obtained funds. He was the leader and organizer of the Clean Air Act crimes, personally directing his employees to remove the diesel emission controls from his trucks. He then attempted to persuade his employees to take the fall for him because of his criminal history, and then threatened to stop paying for their attorney, a threat which he carried through, having failed to pay the counsel that represented the tampered witnesses. Far from being deterred, defendant Carroll appears to have escalated the scale of his conduct, participating in murder and multi-million-dollar fraud, all the while on parole for previous convictions. The he did get the sentence of 120 months, and the U.S. attorney concluded their recommendation that imposing an above guideline sentence would hold accountable a man who has quite literally gotten away with murder, a man who exploited a government program intended to help small business in crisis, and who then attempted to pawn off his liability onto his employees. Defendant Carroll's action made clear that he has no respect for the rule of law and his avarice has no bounds. And what he did is he also took that money and spent it on himself. And they said he just took out from the company $600,000 and called it an owner draw. Thank you for joining us today for Fraud Friday, so you can stop criminals from stealing from you.